Hello and welcome to a new video. I'm sure you're all familiar with a game that was coldly calculated to become big on YouTube. It's a game with a funny tall blue guy and the plastic MILF, and it's a game that has garnered a lot of fan theories and lore speculation videos. You have people like Super Horror Bro or Sheep Rampage or Terracho or even the guy from Game Theory making video after video on this game. You also have an absolute ocean of shit, an entire industry on YouTube dedicated to lying to children about the third chapter. And while I wouldn't call myself a fan of this franchise, I do occasionally watch the theory videos. But there's one thing that I've noticed no one seems to really talk about, even though it has some pretty big implications for the player character. And that thing is that your character should know basically everything that happened in the factory. About the living toys, about what happened to the kids, about all of it. Now, there is like this ARG the devs are doing where some character plays a whistleblower and basically tries to expose what's going on in the factory to the wider world. But that ARG takes place in 1991. But according to the Poppy Playtime wiki, this little green robot here, BoogieBot, came out in 1993. And it would have taken a while for him to become as popular as Huggy or Poppy or even Brawn, to the point where he gets top billing in the main atrium of the factory where all the visitors go to. So whatever the outcome of the ARG is in universe, it clearly didn't have much of an impact on the factory itself. And while companies tend to do scummy and downright evil shit all the time in real life and get away with it completely, you have to remember Poppy Playtime takes place in a fictional universe. And in fiction, things have to actually make sense. The actors have to properly play their roles as we expect them to. So in the final part of Chapter 1, there's this tape you can find which has a recording of a scientist talking about how he's like one breakthrough away from escaping death. This is all while there's muffled screams and sounds of destruction in the background as this entity called Experiment 1006 rampages through the factory, basically killing everyone. Now, assuming that this is like when the factory was at a downfall, this does have some major implications. The Playtime Co. factory is a huge place. It's a place that likely employs hundreds, if not thousands, of employees at any given time. Even after hours, when most of the employees who don't know about all the experiments have gone home, there's still going to be a ton of people there. So, after the experiments rampage through the factory and kill their creators, naturally that's going to lead to a lot of missing persons cases. A lot of husbands and wives are going to be telling the police, "Hey, my spouse is missing, and I last saw them heading off to work at Playtime Co." Like, everyone who died presumably isn't an incel, right? They do have family members and friends who care about them. That, compounded with the fact that Playtime Co. had an active orphanage program, which means that the lives of children are in potential danger, would prompt a rather immediate investigation. And whether or not they find bodies is pretty much irrelevant, because if they find a bunch of slaughtered corpses, that's going to lead them to dig deeper. But if they find everyone missing, this huge factory just completely empty, but with evidence of some destructive happenings having gone on, again, that's going to prompt them to dig deeper. I'm aware that in Chapter 2, the spider character says that you were a former employee, but that doesn't actually tell us all that much. You could just be like one of the chefs at the cafeteria, or the person who does little tours for all the families coming over to see the big Huggy Wuggy statue. However, if the place was investigated and authorities found out about all the experiments and other shady things that the company has been doing, it doesn't really matter what role your character took. They would still know about everything that happened behind closed doors. What information we do find is likely stuff that was missed or looked over by the people who went in and investigated this place. The question might then be, were there any confrontations with the toys themselves? And I would guess not, because we've seen that it's not all too difficult to kill these things. Huggy Wuggy can fall down and bleed, the Mommy Longlegs character could be shredded. I'm pretty sure if someone went in with a decently powerful gun, these toys would all be dead. And if toys did manage to actually kill the cops who first went in to investigate, there would be more powerful guns coming, cause something that a lot of horror movies and media misses is that the police have a system where if an officer doesn't report on how he's doing to the station every so often, they send more guys over under the assumption that the officer was killed on duty. So if you're ever in a horror movie or a horror game and you see a cop get beheaded, just hide in a corner somewhere for a few hours. More will come under the assumption that there's trouble in the midst. The thing is though, we don't really see any real evidence of a huge scuffle. There's some damaged toys laying around, but that could just be Experiment 1006's doing, or any of the other living toys in the factory. So what's more likely than not to have happened is a lot of people died. That prompted an investigation. The factory was thoroughly searched but found no living toys, though they did find information on the experiments in regard to living toys. The area was eventually condemned and then shut down, but eventually 10 years later, one of the employees sent your character a letter asking you to come back and help out the remaining stragglers, and that's how the game starts. Your character knew what he was getting into. He knew that experiments were being done to make living toys, even if he didn't know where the toys are or what the living toys are, and he knew that a lot of people were brutally murdered here. And yeah, that's really it. Just something to keep in mind when you're making theory videos on this goofy-ass what-if childhood thing but scary game. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video, that gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. Take care.